Hi loves, I'm Brittany Taylor, and in this video I'm going to talk about what it means to have your natal Chiron in the sign of Gemini. So what is Chiron? Chiron is this point in our natal chart that represents the wounded healer. So it shows a part of us that is extremely painful. It's like the wound in us, but it also becomes our healing gifts and something that becomes a big part of our healing mission for the planet, okay? So, Chiron in Gemini, the wound is around communication and speaking. These people can feel very awkward in their communications and in their ability to be understood by others. So they can feel quite lonely and like they're not able to really express themselves. So like I'm feeling like the throat chakra, they don't feel like they can really articulate themselves well. Now this is just how they inwardly feel, right? Like it's not necessarily what is true. So there can even be so much like fear around speaking and this feeling of uncomfortability around speaking that they can be like, on some level like stuttering or, actually some kind of speech defect. But I think that's more rare. It's usually more in their heads, okay? Because what I've actually found with people with displacement is that because it's their wound and because it's so difficult for them, and they feel so pained in their realm of speaking and communication, they actually are very articulate. They actually speak very well, and they have this ability, like, when they speak, you just listen because there's something so powerful about them and the way that they articulate things and the way that they communicate. And so it actually ends up being the opposite, right? As with Chiron, always like, Chiron and Virgo, the wound is around the physical body. And so they end up being the health nuts, right? Or Chiron and Taurus, the wound is around money and also the physical body. And then they end up being very financially successful or whatever. So the same thing here with Chiron and Gemini. We've got people that feel so deeply pained in the realm of communication and third house matters, just being understood on a more intellectual level, right? They actually end up being like some of the best writers. That can often be a field that they choose to channel this energy in, even if at the same time they feel so insecure about it, like, oh, I'm not that good of a writer, or I'm not that good of a speaker, or I'm not that good at whatever it is that I'm creating. It's usually some kind of like Gemini thing though, like it writing, speaking, screenwriting, and like it's something to do with the mind and getting it out onto paper, right? Journalism, all of these kind of Gemini professions, right? That ends up being where the healing can come in for them. They can really channel their energy into that. That's how they really heal this wound, is by realizing that it's all in their head, that they, can't speak well, or that they, aren't understood by others, that people don't understand them. That's not actually the truth. The truth is that they are very articulate and very well spoken because they've had to work through this. They've had to work through these fears and these feelings of being like, it's like they feel so cut off from normal human interaction that they sometimes just don't bother, when really they actually that is part of their mission. That's part of their healing purpose, is to be that person that connects ideas and people, and they have this ability to see the world in a very pure way, in a very intellectual way, in a way that is different than others, because they actually are very curious and they do have this unique perspective and this kind of genius, right? So when they allow themselves to really let this out and heal this wound, they end up being the healing writers. You know, these are the people that when they write something, you read it, it heals you, right? Or the speakers, like when they speak to you, they have a way of perceiving you, of perceiving life, of perceiving situations that truly heals you, right? They have this differing perspective that nobody else has, and you know, they really are highly intelligent, even if they feel like they're not, right? And that's the wound. That's the wound. You know, maybe in childhood they were told they weren't smart, they weren't a good speaker, whatever, and they've held on to these early messages and they're just not true. The other thing is that they can be so in the mental body, which can be a very good thing, right? Because they're geniuses, but they may need to actually ground into the physical body more, and that can help them express themselves more clearly as if they have like a grounding practice, because this is like a high mental energy, along with Chiron in Aquarius as well. They have this like electrifying energy, because Chiron is like this healing force, right? And so with Chiron and these air signs, especially those two, like they're needing to ground some of this genius energy into the body, because it's actually like too erratic, right? So it's going to help them to really ground and to bring that energy down. Then they're going to be able to express themselves more clearly as well when they develop some kind of grounding practice, and like a practice of wanting to be here and do their healing mission. Because there can be with Gemini energy kind of like a purposelessness, because like they can see so many different realities and so many different potentials. They're actually operating on such a different plane of reality and existence that it can be hard for them to actually focus on something productive, right? That's the thing with all Gemini energy, but especially with Chiron here, they need to channel it, right? How can I use my amazing mental brilliance, which yes, you do have, for the good of all? This is a good question to ask yourself if you have Chiron in Gemini. And yeah, quite often it's like putting pen to paper and writing it out. You have this healing voice, you have this healing perspective. Nobody sees the world in the way that you do, and the way that you articulate it is so healing for all that you got to let it out. You got to get past the insecurities and the fears that you're not good enough or you're not understood, and realize actually you are the most understood because you have struggled here. So you really do speak well, and just accepting that. And so I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your experiences of this placement as well. I know there's some people in the 1980s, like the mid to late 1980s, that have this one that I've had some people as clients with this, and they're so brilliant. And then, you know, I'm telling them in the session, and they just like, you know, on some level they know, but on another level, they're not acting like it. Right? Like that's the thing with Gemini energy. Maybe we know something, but we don't own it. Right? So anyways, love you guys. And yeah, I do offer one-on-one sessions. My links are below. I do a personal natal chart session, and then I also do a synastry relationship chart session, and my links are below. Anyways, love you guys, and talk soon.